Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping straight in today with something major happening in global economics.
That's right. We're talking about those Liberation Day tariffs the U.S. kicked off this April.
Affecting imports from, what, over 90 countries? It's a big
A
one.
very big one.
So our mission really is to unpack this. What are these tariffs? How's the world reacting? And, what could the fallout be? We're digging into the info we have.
Exactly. Consider this your briefing on a pretty significant shift in global trade policy.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. What exactly are these new tariff measures?
Well, at its core, there's this new baseline, a 10% duty. That applies to almost all goods coming into the U.S. now.
10% across the board.
Pretty much. But then on top of that, there are these additional country-specific rates.
And how are those decided?
It seems they're linked to the trade deficit the U.S. has with each country. So if a country sells a lot more to the U.S. than it buys, well, they face higher tariffs.
All right, sort of balancing the books via tariffs. Can you give us some numbers? How high do these extra rates go?
Sure, the data we've seen points to China facing an extra 54%.
54, on top of the 10.
Exactly. So 64% total for China. Vietnam's looking at an additional 46%, and Taiwan, 32% extra.
Wow, those are some steep increases.
Definitely. And it's important to note this isn't all happening overnight. They're being phased in starting this April.
Okay, so phased in, but still significant. Given those numbers, how's the international community responding? I imagine there's concern.
Oh, absolutely. Concern might be putting it mildly. There's a real worry this could spark a global trade war.
Are we seeing retaliation yet?
We are. China's already announced retaliatory tariffs on American goods. That happened pretty quickly.
And others? The EU, for instance?
The European Union is definitely watching closely. They're considering countermeasures, exploring their options.
And what about global bodies like the WTO?
The World Trade Organization has put out a pretty stark warning. They're projecting a potential, get this, 80% drop in merchandise trade just between the U.S. and China.
80%? That's massive.
It really is. And this brings up the whole idea of economic decoupling.
Where countries deliberately pull back from trading with each other.
Precisely. Reducing that interdependence. And if that happens on a large scale, it could seriously mess up global supply chains and, well, put the brakes on economic growth.
So uncertainty seems to be the word. How are financial markets taking all this?
Not great, generally. We've seen stock indexes dipping, and you can feel investor confidence is a bit shaky as people try to figure out the full implications.
And the wider economic forecast.
The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they're projecting a weaker global economy partly because of these tariffs. They expect higher inflation and slower growth worldwide.
Now, our sources mentioned something interesting, a sort of mixed view from U.S. small manufacturers.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit of a split reaction. On one hand, some are hopeful, thinking maybe less foreign competition could help them out.
A potential upside for them locally.
Potentially. But on the other hand, there's a lot of anxiety. Worries about the overall economic instability, and the risk of retaliation from other countries. That could hit their own supply lines or export sales.
So it's not a simple picture, even domestically. Okay, let's zoom out again. Bigger picture. What do these Liberation Day tariffs signal for the future of global trade?
Well, it clearly signals a shift, perhaps a significant one, towards protectionism. More barriers, less free flow.
And what does that mean for countries?
It could really push them to rethink their trade partnerships, actively look for alternative markets, maybe try to become less reliant on the U.S. market.
So we might actually see the global trade map getting redrawn.
It's certainly possible. You could see a new trade blocs forming, different alliances, maybe a fundamental change in how global commerce operates.
That sounds transformative.
It could be. I think the main takeaway for now is the sheer level of uncertainty these tariffs have injected into the global economy and, well, the real possibility of a longer drawn-out trade conflict.
Okay, so just to quickly summarize, we've got these hefty new U.S. tariffs, serious concern and some retaliation globally, warnings about an economic slowdown from major institutions, and this potential reshuffling of global trade relationships.
That sums it up pretty well. A really pivotal moment, it feels like.
Definitely. And on that note, here's something to chew on. How might these big shifts in global trade, these tariffs, actually change the things you buy every day? The cost, where they come from, might be worth thinking about in the coming years. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.